freed Israeli hostage describes her kidnapping from a kibbutz and captivity in Gaza.
The French president's in Israel to show solidarity, but Emmanuel Macron's first meeting was with families of the 30 French victims of the Hamas attack. Thousands of Israelis apply for gun licenses and head to firing ranges as citizens prepare to defend themselves after the Hamas attacks.
World leaders converge on Prague for a summit aimed at returning Russian-occupied Crimea to Ukraine. "16 days after she was abducted by armed Hamas fighters, Yocheved Lifshitz is free once again. They took her from the southern kibbutz near Oz during the attack on Israel. The 85-year-old says she was beaten and went through hell. Hamas also freed 79-year-old Nurit Cooper on Monday night. An American woman and her daughter were released last week. Israel says at least 200 more remain captive in Gaza.
Emmanuel Macron came to Israel to meet Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and carrying a message of solidarity. But his first meeting was with the families of the 30 French victims of the Hamas attack.
Our daughter, 41 years old, was killed 2 days after her birthday. She went to celebrate her birthday. Everybody.
This is my daughter.
Thank you very much.
My daughter.
He also met relatives of some of the hostages.
Ma fille et ma mère sont mortes. Et
vous avez des disparus aussi dans la famille?
Ce sont deux sœurs.
On est sœurs et
c'est ma maman.
Later, President Macron's expected to call for the preservation of civilian lives in Gaza. Israel's largest self-defense training center has never been busier. It's the first stop on Euronews journalist Valérie Goria's West Bank journey. 6 days a week, civilians use its shooting range. Many are first-timers since the Hamas attacks.
Yeah, it's the first time I'm here. I actually wanted to come for a while because we live out in the woods and we're surrounded with Arab villages. My husband was grafted to the army and I'm alone at home with the kids. And it's the least of the safety that we could feel, is that at least we could could be armed and feel like if anything happens, we'll be able to help watch ourselves and our kids.
The centre's gun store is running out of firearms as demand from civilian customers is soaring. More than 10,000 new requests for arms permits have been recorded since the start of the war. We head for Beitar Illit, one of the biggest Jewish settlements in the area, with an estimated population of 70,000. It's also the first to be armed following the recent move by Israel's far-right leader and National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to provide 10,000 free weapons to settlers in the occupied West Bank and to ease rules for gun licenses.
I myself got a gun 2 weeks ago following what happened in the south. And like me, many other Haredi people understood that maybe there will come a time when there will be nobody there to help them, no police and no army. People starting to understand that they will have to stand for themselves.
I'm standing in front of a Palestinian refugee camp in occupied territory right next to a cluster of Israeli Jewish settlements. Now, things seem very quiet at the moment, but people here, whether Israeli or Palestinian, tell us they fear that the situation could well get out of hand very quickly. I'm Valérie Goria in the West Bank for Euronews.
World leaders and government representatives are in the Czech Republic, Prague, for the second International Crimea Platform. The two-day summit, organised by the Ukrainian government, aims to raise awareness of the impacts of Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea. Its main goal is to get international support to return the peninsula to Ukraine. Crimea has been under Russian occupation since 2014. The ethnic Russian majority there voted to join Russia in a referendum deemed illegal by Ukraine and the West. Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the delegates via video call. The Ukrainian president called for the enforcement of sanctions on Moscow. The EU, US and Canada have imposed penalties in response to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2021. He also stressed the need to stop the spread of Russian propaganda.
Russia's defense ministry said that Russian forces have foiled several attempts by Ukrainian units to cross the Dnipro River in the southern Kherson region over the past few days. According to the ministry, Ukrainian, quote, sabotage and reconnaissance teams were stopped while trying to cross the river. The Institute for the Study of War notes that Ukrainian forces still maintain their presence on the east bank. Geolocated footage confirms that Ukrainian forces have advanced to positions north of Pitstepne here in this area, about 20 kilometers east of Kherson city. Russian sources claim that Ukrainian forces continue to operate on the east bank between Krynki, here it is, and Pitstepne in this area, and warned that Ukrainian troops hope to break through the Pitstepne-Pishanivka line towards Oleshki, here, about 5 kilometers directly southeast of Kherson city. Ukraine recaptured parts of the Kherson region late last year after months of Russian occupation, but Russian forces who left Kherson, the region's biggest city, retreated only as far as the other side of the Dnieper and have continued to shell the city from there. The question is whether Russia has enough reserves to deploy into the contested area here on the east bank. The UK Defence Ministry notes Russia largely continues to rely on specially designated Storm Z units for local offensive operations in Ukraine, which have effectively become penal battalions manned with convicts and regular troops on disciplinary charges. The UK Defence Ministry says the existence of Storm Z units highlights the extreme difficulty Russia has in generating combat infantry capable of conducting effective offensive operations.
In the Polish elections, everyone declared victory. The ruling Law and Justice Party, or PIS, won the most seats. But a coalition of three more liberal parties says only it can form a majority. First, the president must meet the parties.
Bo mamy jeszcze przecież tą kwestię prezydenta, który, no wiadomo, że został przecież popierany przez naszą formację i na pewno wiele z rozwiązań, które w tej chwili zapowiada opozycja, no będzie wetowanych przez prezydenta. Ta opozycja nie ma możliwości odrzucenia weta prezydenckiego przy tak dużej reprezentacji, jaką posiadamy w parlamencie, więc to wszystko pan prezydent powinien brać pod uwagę. I mam nadzieję, że po tych rozmowach powierzy nam tworzenie rządu. No jesteśmy największą formacją, która wygrała te wybory. Nie można nas pozbawiać tej możliwości stworzenia rządu. Nie powiem, że to jest łatwe, ale nie jest też niemożliwe.
Opposition coalition leaders are trying to persuade the president not to give priority to forming a government to the party that won the most votes, but to the parties that are now demonstrating a parliamentary majority.
Powstanie nowa koalicja rządowa składająca się z tych trzech podmiotów, czyli Trzeciej Drogi, Koalicji Obywatelskiej, Nowej Lewicy, i to będzie dobra propozycja dla Polaków. To będzie odpowiedź na decyzję wyborców z 15 października, którzy jasno powiedzieli, że chcą w Polsce zmian. Powstania nowego rządu i także pan prezydent w swoim postępowaniu, w swoich kolejnych krokach powinien uwzględnić wolę Polaków.
The most likely scenario is that President Duda's own political sympathies may sway the appointment of the next Prime Minister when Parliament meets next month.
This Prime Minister will most likely be Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki. Now, he will not be able to form a government because despite coming in first and gaining the greatest number of seats, PIS will not be able to have a majority. In a next step, parliamentarians from this new parliament will be able to appoint an alternative prime minister, and that will most likely be Donald Tusk, who will lead the new coalition, and the transfer of power and the appointment of a new government will happen in December.
During 2 days of consultations with representatives of political formations, the Polish president will ask each of them whether they see a chance of obtaining a parliamentary majority. Although for many the answer seems to be clear, politicians do not want to lose hope until the end. Magdalena Hodownik for Euronews from Warsaw.
Dozens of fans gathered at a London bar to celebrate the release of Britney Spears' much-anticipated new memoir, The Woman in Me. The midnight book reveal party attendees danced to Britney Spears' iconic songs with some clutching copies of her book. Drag performer Margot Marshall said society has learned from Spears' story.
She's such an important person to how we now also view mental health and celebrities, and we've learned so much from her story that to be here in 2023 with this moment is like, wow. It's like 3 lifetimes.
Several chapters are devoted to her relationship with Justin Timberlake, including deeply personal details about a pregnancy, abortion, and painful breakup. The book details her childhood and rise to stardom, and it details her marriages and their nearly 14 years. Her father was her court-appointed guardian. She posted last Saturday on her Instagram that the release of the book has given her closure on all things for a better future.